Welcome to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to awaken our divine nature and explore the provocative inner force compelling us toward our fullest potential. If you've achieved external success but feel a deeper calling, if you're tired of dimming your light to fit in, and you know there's a more powerful way to live and lead and love, you're in the right place. Host Donna Bond is a best-selling author, modern-day high priestess, and catalyst for personal transformation. Together, we're birthing a new paradigm of loving leadership, integrating our humanity with divine wisdom as our individual awakening serves collective evolution. Here's your host of Spiritual Ambition, Donna Bond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, welcome in. Today, it's episode 34. We're calling it the Emergence of a Sacred Humanity. I am coming to you live from San Diego, and I want to welcome you back to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to experience our divine nature, knowing that life is meant to be lived on purpose, through soul purpose. And we're here to ground ourselves more fully in who we actually are. I'm Donna Bond, soul catalyst, spiritual psychology life coach, and the author of Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You. And for the last decade, I've had the profound honor of supporting humanity to wake up to the authentic power that lives inside of you, integrating the wisdom that you can't find in a book or from a credential, because what I'm referring to is the original wisdom of your soul. And today I want you to stay with me because I am sitting down with an incredible man, somebody who embodies their original wisdom on all levels. He's a clinical licensed psychotherapist, a healer, and a visionary. And his name is Jason Gibler. And we're going to go deep into one of the most important questions of our time. What if the emergence of a sacred humanity is a lot closer than we think? You know, sacredness is all around us. And when you experience Jason, you're going to experience this emanation of the sacredness that just emits from who he is. You know, I've had the opportunity to be in Jason's presence on many occasions, and his level of attunement and the amount of love that simply pours through this man is palpable. It's truly palpable. And it's just such my honor that he is sharing his time with us today and that all of you get an opportunity to experience him. So I want to say hello to everybody who is popping in. Jacqueline, hello. Labyrinthria criteria, I still can't do it. We're going to try show after show, but I still can't say it right. You know, we hear this word sacredness, and sometimes it can get tangled up in religion or in rules. But, you know, the true meaning has nothing to do with any of that, because sacred simply means worthy of reverence, deserving of profound respect. And when you see it that way, things begin to change around you, because what we give out is what we get back. Your life and everything in it is sacred. Your relationships are sacred. The planet is sacred. And humanity itself is sacred. In all of its mess and its beauty and its pain, it's all sacred. And that is what Jason Gibler has devoted his entire life in helping us all remember. So we're going to call in the light. I want to invite you to close your eyes wherever you are. And in just a couple minutes, we're going to bring Jason on stage with us here. But let's all just tune into our hearts for a moment, remembering to take a breath Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Kelly. Welcome in, everyone. Infinite Universe, once again, we call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, or imbalance be lifted and transmuted at this time, taking up and lifting anything that is no longer serving us up into the light, transmuting it back into the nothingness from which it came. Into this space, we ask to be flooded with grace and light, with peace and love, with aliveness, creativity, openness, allowing, receiving, exchange, cultivation, reciprocity. We acknowledge and we welcome only those divine beings of light who love each one of us unconditionally, who work for the divine plan and who work for the light. We welcome only you into our sacred space here today. We ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart that will resonate most profoundly with each individual here for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together, the opportunity to open our hearts, to lift our awareness, to create new neural pathways in our brain, to open our minds. For this and more, we say thank you. So be it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to send some light through our sacred circle of light to anybody out there who might need it. You know, I want to start with sending light to the family and friends of Jean Houston, who passed over the weekend. Jean is a luminary, an author of more than 30 books, a thought leader. And Jean Houston was really the pioneer in the human potential movement. She dedicated her extraordinary life to the belief that every single one of us carries within us capacities that are far beyond what they imagine possible. So I just want to send the light out to her partner, Robert Masters, her co-founder, to the Foundation for Mind Research. We also send the light to Celia and Don, Betty and Bob, sending a little birthday light and love out to Addison, sending some light to Nadia and Luca, sending the light to Robin. Welcome in Anne, Neva. If anybody wants to send light, this is where we all gather our hearts and our intentions and send that luminosity. We're going to talk about luminosity here in a minute with Jason. We send our loving out and around the planet to whoever might need it. If there's someone that you would like to be held into our sacred circle of light on a regular, you can submit their name at spiritualambitionsacredlight.com. All right. Well, without further ado, you know, Jason Gibler is a licensed clinical psychotherapist. He's a speaker, a healer. He's a great explorer of the great mystery, and he's the founder of eco-spiritual psychology, which is a transformational healing model that weaves together neuroscience, modern psychology, and ancient earth-based and indigenous wisdom. He's devoted his life to mapping the inner journey that makes transformation possible. His forthcoming book, The Way of the Jaguar, is a mystical allegory about the transformation of human consciousness, one man's shamanic journey to the heart of what it means to be alive. So I would like to welcome Jason to Spiritual Ambition, and I'm so grateful that he's here to join us.
Hi, Donna. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Jason, gosh, it's so lovely to be with you. Well, we have to talk first and foremost about the Jaguar, because as you know, and as I giggled, I'm in this home that I get to stay in when I'm here in San Diego. And I was trying to attune to the best place to do our show today. And I sat down and I set up my laptop when all of a sudden I realized and remembered this statue of a jaguar that is behind me.
Yeah.
And your book, which is called The Way of the Jaguar. And, tell us about this incredible creature and why we have been blessed with the jaguar dropping into our space in a very big way today. Like, it's not subtle. It was like the jaguar was coming to Spiritual Ambition today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd have to start with a little shout out to Jorge Luis Delgado, who's a shaman from Peru. And I have this beautiful Shipibo blanket on my wall. And when I met him, he was doing an event, and for days I was there with him, and he kept on saying, "Jason, you need to come back and get your blanket. You need to get your blanket. You need to get your blanket." And I was like, "Well, I'm not so sure." He says, "You got to get your blanket." The event gets over, and he's up on the stage, and he comes off the stage. He puts his arm around me. He says, "Let's go." So I go, and there's only 2 blankets left. And this lady comes rushing in and she grabs one, and it was the other one that I was thinking about getting. And what was left is this beautiful jaguar. So this is how the first time that I got, the jaguar as a totem clearly sent to me from, indigenous wisdom. And so if you don't know much about the jaguar is an incredible power animal, spirit animal. And really what it signifies is our highest purpose. It's what takes us to the very highest possibility for ourselves in this lifetime. And that's what I feel so blessed to have the jaguar as a totem for me, because the book, The Way of the Jaguar, is all about that. There's a kind of a gritty journey, of just a guy, that's full of a lot of things like fear and challenges and ego and all this stuff. And the jaguar shows him the way, to understand the deeper things that are happening within him, so he can face the underworld of his own being and then learn from all these different spiritual wisdom traditions that are represented by animals like crocodiles and things like that, and anacondas, and come to the realization of his true self. So that's what this book is about. It's a fiction book, but it has a lot of great wisdom in it. And for me, what I do is I like to bring wisdom traditions together. I think this is a time of deconstructing hierarchies and ways of being separate. And when we look at, the great wisdom that is out there for us, it all points to light. And so my work incorporates psychotherapy, neuroscience, ecology, great scientific wisdom. And then I also, jump into Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and shamanism. And I see the beauty and the light in all of them. And my work is to help bring that together so that we can see individuation. It doesn't mean that we're separate. And oneness doesn't mean that we lose who we are. And so this is one of the concepts that I love to talk to you about. It's, often people debate, between duality and non-duality. And so this is another fun subject for me to discuss. But ultimately, what I'm here to talk about is the emergence of a sacred humanity and what that means. And thank you so much for talking about sacredness, because when we do think about sacredness, it does get bound up in a lot of things like religious, ways of being, and do we kneel, do we stand, all this stuff. You're like, is it a church? It's funny because I had somebody ask me one day. He's like, so where do you go out into the woods? I'm always out in the forest. So just know that about me. Like I spend
Run into any jaguars out there?
Well, I there's some cougars nearby where I live, and actually they visit some of my prayer places. But what I do is my main kind of practice is every Sunday I'm in the forest alone, and I usually spend 4 to 5 hours in a very remote location where I almost never see another human being, and I'm out there walking and praying. And in this location, there are 7 giant mountains across a beautiful valley. In the South American traditions, they call the mountains the Apu, or the great teachers. And so I can feel their energy and learn from them and what they have to share. And I'm walking upon the skin of the mother. And my journey, or what I'm teaching about, is what I call walking the luminous path. And essentially, it's learning how to walk as a sacred being on a sacred planet for the betterment of all beings. And so that's my work.
Just say that again, and then let's just allow it to wash over us.
Yeah. So it's all about learning how to walk as a sacred being on a sacred planet for the betterment of all beings, including all humans, all animals, everything in the sea, everything in the sky, all creatures, the microbes in the dirt. It's all of it. And learning how to do that.
As our viewers are tuned in, and if you're listening to the recording, I want you to really sense into Jason's words and the emanation and the frequency that come through Jason's words as he is sharing this. Because one of the theories that I have about this consciousness work that we all are doing is there's entrainment, and because you hold a vibration or a frequency, you're inviting others to come to that, to match that, but you essentially have the template. So, as Jason is speaking, I can just I'm being shown to slow down time in this moment and really steep in the sacredness of what you're sharing and what you're saying.
Thank you. Sacredness is beyond words. It's beyond understanding. It's beyond conceptualization. When we drop into the sacred, often our thoughts disappear. And this is good.
Yeah.
The thoughts that we know, for example, one of the biggest barriers to actually seeking sacredness is to think that the problem with faith systems is they think they know. We don't know.
We don't. We don't have a clue.
I have a funny thing to share with you. It's what I call Horton Hears the Who theology. And if you ever read the Dr. Seuss book, Horton the giant elephant is running through a field. These monkeys are chasing him, and on the little tiny flower is a whole civilization that thinks they know what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's us.
Right.
So we don't know, but the fact that we want to know is pretty awesome, because that draws us to it. Rumi, he said, "How do you know there's a God? The cry in your heart is the evidence." That's how you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my definition of spiritual ambition, right? This provocative inner force, this propeller that we have to keep discovering and keep noticing and keep engaging in life and our ability to merge with it and be it and have it move through us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, Donna. And what you're speaking about is what I would call living as an emanation of spirit. And so, the confusion often comes when people think that if we're one, then that's all there is. And on some level, that's very, very true. But we can get kind of egoic when we're like, oh, I'm God, essentially. I'm creating everything. On a level, that's true. But on another level, what we are truly more accurately is we're emanations of spirit. So just as the sun's rays are the sun, that's true. And yet they are the rays. And so sticking with my buddy Rumi, he talks about the reed flute. We're the reed flute, and then the song comes from spirit, and it blows through the reed flute to make beautiful music, whatever that it wants to make. So when we live as an emanation, we're not making what we want to make. We're allowing the great musician, the great mystery, the great creative artist to create its beingness through us moment by moment.
Jason, you said something just upon our opening, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but I want to ask you to speak to this because you're sort of pointing to it a little bit now. And I think people have a fear about this, that like, if I really allow myself to go back to the oneness, then what happens to Donna? What happens to Jason? What happens to Jennifer and Lynn and Tahina and Kelly? Like, there is a fear, and I know I've experienced this within my own consciousness, and I'm sure it's my ego's pushback, but just say a little bit more about how important our individuality is within the oneness.
Yeah. And you're so right. I mean, we all fear our annihilation. This is
annihilation. It's a big word.
Well, it's true. It's one of the deepest fears of any human. We fear that we will be annihilated, whether it's through just dying or moving into bliss. They're both scary, right? Because our ego or our sense of self or our conceptual ideas of what we are, that's what's disappearing. So the essence of our being isn't disappearing, but the conceptual idea of what we think that essence is disappears, if that makes any sense. So essentially, in some of my work, I talk about the layers of self, and so what I call the architecture of self. And within the architecture of self, there is the unconscious or non-conscious drivers that give us, so many troubles, so many problems. Much of it comes from our family, comes from collective consciousness, comes from our history, and most of it operates unconsciously. And so that's one layer of self. Another layer of self is the conceptual self, or what other people might call the ego. And the reason why I don't really like the term ego is because we think of ego as an egoic, like I think highly of myself. But ego could also be, oh, I'm no good, I'm terrible. It's essentially the way that we describe who we are. And so it's what we think of ourselves, but it's also what everybody else has told us, whether they think, whatever kinds of messages we've gotten all of our lives. Either we're smart or we're not, or we're beautiful or we're ugly or whatever. All these ideas that we put together and we decide are us. That's the conceptual self. And then the next self, this is the one that is really most powerful, I think, for humanity, is what I would call the luminous self, and what some traditions might call the soul, or other traditions might call the Atman. but essentially it is our highest being. And of course, that's what the Jaguar is leading us to, is our highest being. And then one more layer, we keep going. The other next layer is the absolute consciousness.
And
It
that's
is
the
universal.
oneness.
That is the oneness, and that is the dream that is coming into existence moment by moment. That is us, but ultimately is us and everything. And so when you look at, a giant forest, like say the redwoods, there are many, many, many beautiful trees, and each of them have their own unique way of being and their own unique purpose for being in the forest. And they each house all kinds of, creatures that live there. And even though there might be a little tiny redwood down there, oftentimes I imagine myself as a tiny redwood and I'm looking up, whoa, I'll never be as cool as you. But I noticed that over time that's the destiny of all of us. And this is really what we move into this higher truth of our own being.
Yes.
And the fastest way to do this, and I'm glad you asked about this question, because the fastest way to do this is to learn how to live from the luminous self.
And that's getting you on the luminous path.
Absolutely. Walking the luminous path, right?
So what is the luminous path?
Well, the luminous path is our journey toward our highest being.
Yeah.
And so that means that it's happening every moment. And the more we align with it, and the more we accept what happens to us, good, bad, however we want to describe it, as a step on our journey toward whatever we want to call it, enlightenment, luminosity, oneness, then we begin to be in that field and it just starts happening and you can't help it because it was never you in the first place. It was always luminosity coming in through itself.
Mm. Mm. Jason, you shared an excerpt with me out of your luminous journal. Am I correct? I'm saying it correctly,
Yes.
the luminous journal.
Yes.
And this is a gift that you have for all of our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah.
Kelly's going to go ahead and put that up on the screen so people can see it. But I'd like to read just a little bit of this journal excerpt and then have you expand on it a little bit more for us. Because you open with a question, and I know, in your teachings, you always talk about the power of the question. And, we opened reminding everyone that we know nothing. We got to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
We got to keep asking those questions. And so this opens with, what if the emergence of a sacred humanity is not something that we must force, build, promote, or usher in, but something that we can learn to recognize, align with, and participate in moment by moment?
Thank you for reading that. Yeah, I had this vision, I'm like you said, I'm a visionary. And so I'm also a writer. So, of course, write fiction and nonfiction. And one day I was out in the forest and I was really grieving for the planet. I do a lot of prayer out there and, it just came upon me. I'm looking over this beautiful valley and I was wondering, where are all the bears? Where are all the deer? Where are all the cougars? Where are all the salmon? Where are all the indigenous people? My heart started breaking. I was like, oh, this just hurts. Grief, And I just cried out. I was like, what have we done? What have we done to this planet? How could we? How could we? And I think of all the destruction, the environmental destruction, the way that we've harmed other human beings, the way that we other people, the way that we make enemies out of beings of light.
Yes.
And my heart broke and I cried and cried. And at the end, this vision came to me of an earth renewed, and many, many traditions have this idea but the planet was just beautiful, and it was teeming with animals. And in my vision, technology was part of it. We actually lived in satellites outside the planet, and we would come, and the concept I had is that the entire Earth was a park, and that people would come from across the galaxy to see this beautiful spiritual gem, which is our Mother Earth. And that was my dream. And then I thought, well, the only way this works is if we recognize the sacredness of the Earth, which my dear friend, of course, he's gone, passed away. And I'm not saying I knew him personally. I'm saying I call him friend because his writings have touched my heart deeply. My friend, Black Elk. We honor Black Elk, our teacher, the Lakota holy man. He said that we need to restore the sacred hoop. He in Lakota, they see the animals as people, the buffalo people, the antelope people. We need to restore the sacred hoop. And in their tradition, there's so many wonderful stories about the sacred hoop. But essentially, the sacred hoop is the circle of all humanity and all of the animals and the earth itself. And as we look into the heavens, there's an arc. It's a sacred hoop. There are sacred hoops, sacred circles all around us. The sacred hoop is very, very powerful. And so as I was praying on the mountain and grieving for what we have done, I saw the sacred hoop, and I could see the restoration. And what it requires is that we each recognize the sacredness that is out there, so that we can recognize the sacredness within us.
Yes.
And in my vision, I thought, oh, maybe 300, maybe 500 years this will happen. But then a little bit later, I was talking to a mentor of mine, a really wonderful man, Richard Taupinger, in Nashville. We met up, and I realized then, and we were talking about this, and I just realized that no. The emergence of a sacred humanity is not 300 years from now. It is right now.
Yes.
In this moment. It is in every one of us. Because if we could just see the sacredness in the person that we're talking to, if we could just see the sacredness within our own selves, if we could just see the sacredness within our own fears, within our own sadness, within our own grief,
Yes.
within our own dreams, within our own joy, within our own hope, if we could just see that, everything would change.
What's it going to take?
Well, it's if you go to the forest and you look at a tree and you pray to it, you say, thank you. You're so beautiful. Are you going to cut it down? If you go to the ocean and you see the glorious ocean, are you going to throw plastic in it? Trash? Would you do such a thing? How could you? You can't, because you see the sacredness. And so this is the issue with humanity is over time, some of the more male-dominated, faith systems have proposed that we are over the earth, that that we're supposed to subdue the earth. This is a mistake. As the great indigenous people will all tell us, we are keepers of the earth. We are here to care for our mother. And when I walk upon the land and the forest, I think of myself walking on the skin of the sacred. Yes. I know I'm walking on her skin. Do I want to put a hole in her skin? No. I want to care for her. She's our mother.
Jason, thank you for your beautiful vulnerability and your honesty and your generosity of spirit in willing to share your grief with us and invite us into it with you. And for anyone who's just tuning in, we're talking with Jason Gibler today about sacredness and the emergence of a sacred humanity. And collapsing time, that sacredness isn't tomorrow or off in the future, far away from where we are now, that we have a choice in this now moment as it is unfolding before us to see sacredness, to choose sacredness, to begin the relationship with all that is sacred.
Yes. Yeah. And the interesting thing about this is when we see sacredness, we see healing. So
More.
as a psychotherapist, I'm always helping people with their trauma, the darkness in their lives. I do a lot of couples therapy. I'm helping people with conflict and, you know, parts of self, all these difficult things. But when we can come to see the difficulty as sacred and we don't push it away, then we learn how to honor everything that arises and everything that is. And we learn how to do something that I think is so, so, so powerful. So I want to share it here with you today. And I call it seeing more deeply. We must see more deeply. We can't look at the surface. The surface is illusion. When somebody is angry, what's underneath? Are they afraid? Are they lonely? Are they sad? Are they rejected? Do they just need to be loved?
Yeah.
Well, I could fight with their anger, or I could try to meet their need. And that's sacred seeing.
Yes.
Can we see the sacred? I hope that everybody's listening right now could just right now see the sacred. Look all around you. Look in your own heart. Can you feel the sacred heart beating within you? Can you be thankful for your lungs, for your sacred body, for your eyes that let you see the world? Can you see the sacredness within your own being? Can you see the sacredness within your family? The people, even if they're hard to get along with, can you see? If you look deeper, if you look beneath, can you see their sacredness? This is how you emerge. This is how you allow spirit to flow through you. You open to what the spirit can see. The spirit sees sacredness because all is sacred. All comes from sacredness.
Thank you for that. I want to share a little bit more of this. Sacred is already here in this very breath. The invitation is to enter into it consciously. As we align with sacredness in our own lives, we naturally begin to embody it, emanate it, and share it. Sacred humanity then emerges through us, moment by moment, relationship by relationship, act by act. So the challenge is not convincing people of their innate sacredness. The challenge is participating in sacredness itself. I'm reading from Jason's luminous journal. When we do this, the practice becomes magnetic. The field draws people towards itself, not through persuasion, ideology, or force, but through presence. I wanted to share a personal story. You and I had the privilege of both speaking at the Global Evolutionary Summit not long ago. And I think you can still catch that online. If you go to Global Evolutionary Summit with Teresa Warnstaff, you can find your way to that because all of the contributors were remarkable and incredible. And when Jason came on, he invited every single person to say hello to him. But it was this Let me give you a hug. Let me love you. Let me deeply see you. Let me see into your heart. Let me reflect to you your soul, your magnificence, your luminosity. And every single person was weeping. Like everyone was so, first of all, surprised, again, at your level of transparency and in this deep intimacy, and captivated, but in a way that wasn't uh, showy. It wasn't a showmanship that happened. It was this deep, genuine authenticity where you were inviting people into themselves by saying hello to you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And it was so remarkable. And it was
Yeah.
so beautiful. And I just want to personally say thank you to you for that.
Oh, thank you, Donna. I bless you. I love you, and I see the sacred in you. And it's just such a wonderful blessing to be here with you.
Yeah, this is really incredible. And, your heart is wide open and my heart is wide open. And when our heart is open, we leak. There's
Yeah.
nothing we can do about it. We leak because of where humanity is
Yeah.
and our longing for the sacred, our
Yeah.
longing for the sacredness in all of us and in
Yeah.
all of life.
Yeah. Tears. Thank you for bringing up tears. So, um, tears are sacred, right? Um,
Yes.
you know, in the Christian tradition, there's an understanding about living water, and typically refers to Jesus. But I feel like tears are living water.
Yeah.
They're living sacred water that allows us to let go of what causes us deep pain. They're living sacred water that allows us to feel the joy of that great mystery as it pours through us. That great mystery that is expressed in so many ways through the Buddha, through Jesus, through the earth, through the sky father and the earth mother. The living water that flows through us is the water of the divine, helping us to be open and cleansed so that our hearts can break and allow the light to shine and come through, not for our own sake, but of course it does bless us, but for the sake of the entire universe and everything that exists.
What you're speaking to is a sacred practice, right? Like it's a sacred practice
Yeah.
to allow ourselves to open, to weep, to grieve, to
Yeah.
feel, to
Yeah.
feel. And, as a psychotherapist, share with us when someone is, I'm going to just say, so deeply in their ego, their operating system. I know that's not what you call it. It's what I refer to it, though, as
Yeah.
when we're so deeply in our operating system and it's that false part of ourself, that learned part of ourself that is behind the wheel of the car, running the show of our life. And I know everyone here is on their own path and no one needs to be fixed and it's all sacredly perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to just
Yeah.
put that out there as well.
Yeah.
How do we begin to relax the resistance that can stonewall people from opening their hearts, opening their minds, softening themselves to experience the sacred?
Well, I will answer that first by bowing to the question. So thank you for that. Um, And then again, I guess today my friend Rumi, another friend from about 800 years ago, is here, maybe more. Uh, and Rumi says, out beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there's a field.
I'll
I'll
meet
meet
you there.
you there. Yeah. And so the conceptual self or the ego is always all caught up in right and wrong.
Yeah.
It's all about right and wrong, good and bad, up and down, higher and lower. It's always worried about feeling shame. It's always trying to feel better about itself. It's always trying to be better than the other person. Doesn't want to, let anybody know that it's afraid. That's the conceptual self. That's the ego layer. It's not wrong. It's okay. It's part of the sacred. The challenge is when we live from there. If we live from there, we get stuck. It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so when I work with clients, I'm always looking at that. And what I'm leading people to or hoping them to find is the higher self or the deeper being. There are many ways to conceptualize this, but once we see it, we become observers and we can observe, oh, that's my part that's afraid of looking bad. Oh, that's my part that wants to look good. They're kind of the same guy, right? But I can see it, right? And I'm like, it's okay. You guys can be here. But what I'd rather do is get out of the way and let my highest self, that luminous self I was talking about, be the author, be the one that creates. And so if I can do that, then I don't have to worry about anything. I just have to be like an observer that's kind of along for this amazing ride.
Mm.
And I get to see, man.
So what
on a show, right?
Yeah. What's a good question that our viewers can work with, our listeners can work with, that will walk them into this?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. One of my favorite questions for any moment is, what is this moment trying to teach me?
Mm. Yeah.
What is this moment trying to teach me about myself? Is it pointing me to struggles with concept? Is it pointing me to right and wrong? Is it pointing to me to a place where I feel like I have to defend a position or something? Maybe I don't need that. What's the deeper need? Can I see more deeply? Why do I need that? Why do I feel separate? Why do I feel alone? Why do I feel scared?
Mm.
Oh, I see. It's part of my story. Can I care for the child that needs love?
Yeah.
Right. So these are the kinds of things, and there are many questions there, but it's starting with the idea of, what is this moment trying to teach me, and really being open to listening. What can I notice? And what can I see that's deeper? Like, if I see a hot emotion like anger, if I see emotion like hatred, what's underneath it? Do I need to fight against that? No. Can I welcome it? Can I just notice that it's here and ask what it's trying to teach me?
Yeah.
I had this thing happen to me one time. I want to share you a little story. But I kept on waking up in the middle of the night, and then I would wake up and I'd have this really, really mean voice in my head. And it was like, you're horrible. I hate you. You're stupid. I used to get with these really mean things. And sometimes it'd tell me, it's like, you just need to, jump off a bridge or something like that. And I would wake up and I would jump out of bed and I'd read a book, and I was like, oh, that was freaky. I didn't like that. Or I'd watch a movie. And this went on and on and on for a long time. Until finally, I was working with my psychotherapist, who's a great guy, who's a Jungian analyst, and he said, "Hey, why don't you draw this thing? This thing that keeps on attacking you in the middle of the night." So I got out a bunch of crayons and some paper, and it had red and black. It looked like the Balrog. I don't know if from the Lord of the Rings. The Balrog's this beast that comes out of the earth, and it's got this gigantic club and and so this was this scary giant thing that was trying to destroy me every night. And so one night it did it again. It's yelling at me, telling me how horrible I am, telling me how much it hates me. And I said to it, it's like, why are you being so mean to me? That's exactly how I said it. I was like, why are you being so mean to me? And it said to me, it's because you're going to embarrass me. You're going to embarrass me. Look at you going out there trying to talk about spiritual stuff. You're going to embarrass me. Everybody's going to think you're, this or that. I was like, oh, okay. So you're worried about me embarrassing you. Thank you for sharing that. Why are you so worried about being embarrassed? Well, because what happened to me when I was a kid, and they made fun of me and they put me down, and they held me to the ground and they spit in my face. I was like, oh, I see you're hurt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. Come here. Let me hold you. Let me hold you. You need my love. You don't want to kill me. You just don't want to be afraid anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for sharing that. And I hope that everyone listening and watching can find your way to the underlying message that Jason is really inviting us into here. And that is to love all of the parts.
Yeah.
And know that all of these scary monsters that we have in our consciousness, in our awareness, and even out in the world,
Yeah.
all those scary monsters, they're all looking for love.
They are
looking for love. And, I'm going to quote Richard Rudd. He says, people don't need help. They need love.
Yeah. Right. And when we find love, what we're actually finding is the essence of the universe.
Yes.
So what we're longing for really is ourselves.
Yes.
And so this is really interesting, right? And it's such a great and amazing teaching to know that when we feel that emptiness inside, it is a yearning for the truth of who we are.
The sacredness of who we are.
Yes, the sacredness. Yeah.
I'm looking at the time. Gosh, it goes by so quickly. Jason, tell us about eco-spiritual psychology. Because as a spiritual psychology coach, I'm really curious as to this modality that you have created and what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, eco-spiritual psychology is a combination of many things. So it's indigenous earth-based wisdom. It's science, ecology. It's neuroscience. It's psychotherapy. It's also wisdom from all the great wisdom traditions. And this is super important to me that none are left out. All the wisdom traditions point to the light. All of them have things about them that we could either take or leave, and that's fine. We don't have to take all of it. But what we want to look for is the light within everything. And so if we take a faith system, we say, oh, well, that's not for me, we're essentially creating separation. So what I would rather do is point toward connection between all things. And so this is really what eco-spiritual psychology does. It begins with the great teachings of nature that show us that all things are connected, that we are part of the ecosystem. We're not above it or beyond it or different from it. We are actually part of the ecosystem. And when we realize that, then we start to see that, the idea of a divine Mother Earth is not some kind of like out there idea. It's actually true. The Earth is our mother. Without the Earth, we do not live. It literally, this planet is the reason why we're here. And so we learn to care for the mother by just noticing that she's our mother, first off, and honoring her. But then we also honor the different aspects. So, I think with me, I've done a lot of work in divine feminine, divine masculine, and both are needed. And they're needed in balance. And so eco-spiritual psychology is really about balance. It's about balancing the divine feminine, divine masculine, balancing what it means to be human with what it means to be a child of the earth, balancing what it means to be an emanation of the great beyond and also be in this human body. It's all about that. And what the key to the whole process is healing and finding that sacredness that is in all things. And simply by doing that, healing occurs very spontaneously. Not that it doesn't take time, but the practices themselves, walking upon the sacred earth. Black Elk said, "May every step that I take upon the sacred earth be a prayer." If you could just do that, go to the forest, let every step be a prayer. Su Yun, the great Chan master, Buddhist master, he said he had a really interesting story. He walked 3 years, and every 3 steps he would bow to whatever was there, a plant, a rock. And so that was his sacred walk. It took him forever to get where he was going, because every 3 steps for 3 years, he bowed. And this is one of the practices that I've turned into something that I use in my own work and that I teach to others. Stop and bow. Bow to your dog. Bow to your cat. Bow to your plant. See the sacredness in all of them. The grass in your yard, the sun outside. Bow to the sun. And so eco-spiritual psychology helps us to heal all the parts within us by recognizing the sacredness all around us.
Beautiful. Well, my deep bow to you and to the work that you are doing out in the world and to who you are as a divine emanation of the sacredness of life and the sacredness of love and spirit that really moves through you. I know we didn't get to the whole journal entry, but Kelly, if you could put up the link with Jason's gift that you are sharing with our listeners and our viewers, if you can talk a little bit about the Luminous Journal and let everybody know, what's in store with that.
Thank you. And what I'd like to say is thank you for bowing, and I bow to you as well. And I also bow to all beings, and like everyone who's watching and listening, and everyone who will listen to this somewhere in the future, and everyone you share this with. We are all sacred. We are all emanations of light. The light flows through every single being. There is no hierarchy. There is only openness. There is only awareness. There is only a willingness to allow the light to flow. So you don't have to, strive and you don't need a teacher. You can have teachers. They're helpful. But your greatest teacher is your own heart, opening to the great beyond, the great mystery. So the Luminous Journal is my path that I've been on. It's my teachings, the things that I share about walking on the sacred, about seeing the sacred, about standing under the sacred sky. It's my work that I bring together psychology and neuroscience and everything else that I do. And every one of these little entries, you get one every couple weeks or so if you sign up for it. They start with a question that helps you to ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? How can I learn? And I share a little bit about what I know. And then, it's designed as a journal so that you can actually learn and do the deep work yourself. And I can help you along that path. And with it, it's comprised of things that come to me while I'm out walking in the forest, and what I call soul notes from the luminous self. And essentially the soul, my own soul, or the soul of the world, teaching me, and then me putting it into form that can be understood and that people can think about.
Well, it's very beautiful. And I want to encourage everyone to get this beautiful gift from Jason. The URL address is on the screen, and you can, of course, go to jasongibler.com and find your way to learn more about Jason and his work and what he's up to in the world. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to close our sacred space in the same way that we opened it. And I just have deep gratitude to be able to be on the planet at the same time as you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Vivian says we learn to recognize each other through love. And I know that that's true. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here, Vivian and Jennifer, and everyone who has tuned in to this beautiful, heart-opening, sacred conversation that we've had today with Jason Gibler. I want to invite us all to just close our eyes for another moment and just bringing in the knowingness from our highest self that all of life is indeed sacred. All of our relationships, all of our exchanges, all of our obstacles and our opportunities in life, that when we bring that sacredness to whatever it is, whether it's glory and joy or whether it's pain and grief, we infuse it with the highest potential. We infuse it with our highest self, with our luminous self. We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between either one of us and the spirit world. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together, open our minds and our hearts, to enter into the sacredness of life itself. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you out in the world, letting your sacred heart open and shine through you to all of the people in your life. We are closing this space with love, in love, for love, by love, as love. I'm Donna Bond. This is Spiritual Ambition. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jason.